listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Oh, here we go. What a busy Monday live in Los Angeles. This is the Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We are on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. 1 hour from now. Colin right, Colin wrong. Have to be honest, we had trouble finding the wrongs this week. It was like an avalanche of me being right. That was great. Joy Taylor is joining me, looking as festive and beautiful as ever. How are you, Joy?
Thank you. I'm trying to be festive. It's Christmas week.
It is.
It's here.
So I'm working a couple days. You're working more days. Goulet, we don't give Goulet days off. He just works every day. So it's great to have you in. We got lots to talk about today,
Yes.
including Dabo Swinney's doing some gamesmanship that I find hysterically funny. I want to start with this. Listen, sometimes you want something to happen so badly that you convince yourself it's going to happen before it happens, and it skews your judgment. The Patriots were so boring and dominant for 20 years. Everybody wants the next dynasty to be fun and flashy and cool and hip, and I get it. Like, I get that last Patriots Super Bowl win over the Rams. I was bored, and I live in LA, and I'm a Patriot guy. But just because you want something to happen doesn't mean it's true. I'm watching this Kansas City team. Don't forget, they trailed by at least 10 points in all 3 playoff games last year, and were outplayed by the Niners for 3 of the 4 quarters. And the team I'm watching right now, I mean, they're winning 6 straight wins, 6 points or fewer, NFL record. And they've gotten some breaks. How in God's name was that game close yesterday? How was it a 3-point game? Drew Brees early was awful. They had no running game. They had 15 first downs. The Saints never had the ball. I've never seen a lopsided time of possession, 42 minutes to 18. The Saints were terrible on third down. Their best receivers were all gone. Drew Brees is coming back. It looked like it hurt to throw. And in the end, it's a 3-point game. Again, people forget this. We all live in the moment. Through 11 weeks last year, that's 60% of the season, 65%. Kansas City was 7-4. The defense was not top 10. I think Mahomes was like 15 in passer rating. He'd been hobbled. He hadn't been playing efficiently, consistently. It was a 7-4 football team. Then they got healthy. Mahomes and Andy Reid click. Passer rating goes up. Defense plays well, and they play really well. Although, and I when I say this with Kansas City, I say it with affection and love. They're more fun than New England. They're flashier. They're faster. But they leave a lot of points on the floor. That game should never have been close. Drew Brees was mostly awful early. No receivers, couldn't run, 15 first downs, never had the ball. I mean, I look at these numbers this morning. Drew Brees is 15 for 34. 1 for 11 on third. 18 minutes time of possession. 15 first downs. Couldn't run the ball. Against Kansas City, and that thing's a 3-point game. You know, everybody always says, you are what your record is. No, if that's true, then the Pittsburgh Steelers would be dominant. You're not always what your record is. Sometimes we see it in college football. You have a great record because of weak opposition. And let's be honest, the division they're in's not great. Chargers don't have the right coach. Denver doesn't probably have the right quarterback. Raiders don't have the right defense. I don't know. I look at the AFC right now, and there are some trouble spots for the Chiefs. The Titans, the Cleveland Browns, the Ravens, and the Colts. Ravens aren't in yet, but 4 teams that have really profound running games. What does that mean? That Patrick Mahomes sits on the sideline and watches the football game. I could absolutely see the Titans and Derrick Henry dominating time of possession, and Mahomes doesn't get the ball. I could see Cleveland doing it with that offensive line, best in the NFL. I could see the Colts doing it. I could see the Colts doing to Kansas City what the Colts did to Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is a spectator. But I understand wanting, after 20 years of dominance in a sport we all love, wanting something new. Okay, and not only wanting something new, but wanting something fun and flashy. It doesn't work this way in the NBA. The way it usually works in the NBA is flashy wins. The Warriors were flashy, and the Heatles were flashy, and Shaq Kobe was flashy, and Magic was flashy. And then you occasionally get kind of defensive-minded boring team. The Sonics in the 70s, the Pistons one time. You get the occasional, kind of boring. In football, Alabama's boring and New England was boring, and I get we all want fun. But man, I find Kansas City incredibly vulnerable. And I know their record's great, but that game should never have been even marginally competitive if you kind of look at what transpired over 3.5 hours. All right, speaking of now, so the Rams lost to the New York Jets. It was funny. These games were on at the same time, and I couldn't keep my eyes off the Rams Jets. It was just a dumpster fire. It was a tire fire on the side of the road. You couldn't stop looking at it, and it's really interesting. So I was texting a couple of personnel people in the NFL as we're talking about the Trevor Lawrence thing, and they're texting me back, and they're like, God, this is months of content for you. This is crazy. So here's the thing. Trevor Lawrence for Clemson is now not going to go to the Jets probably, right? All these personnel people have been telling me for 3 years. He would have gone number 1 as a freshman. He would have been the number 1 pick 3 years ago. He would have been drafted out of high school. Somebody put on a scout team. He was that good. The gap between him and you've watched him play this year, and Justin Fields is huge. And Justin Fields is good. But this is John Elway. This is Andrew Luck. And we don't make that commentary very much on quarterbacks. We never talked about a quarterback out of college like John Elway before John Elway. I never talked about a college quarterback like Andrew Luck before Andrew Luck. Okay, this is the third quarterback in my life that's a can't miss, will overcome even average to mediocre coaching, right? Bad coaching, he'll overcome it. Justin Fields will not. So this morning, the Jets have a dilemma on their hands. What do we do with the number 2 pick? Because, the Jets already have 2 firsts, a second, and 2 thirds. So if you look at who is drafting now in the top 15 picks, I think there's 4 teams that will strongly consider getting a quarterback. And Joey and I will tell you this over and over. The closer you get to the draft, the crazier the teams get about quarterback. Remember, we're always talking ourselves out of quarterbacks, and then Jordan Love, the Packers move up to get him. That's just the way the draft works. Is that people go crazy. They move up to get quarterbacks. And the closer you get to a draft, so it's like everybody's wedding. Oh, let's not spend too much money. The closer you get to the wedding, we don't have a bad photographer, and you got to have flowers. Pretty soon when you look up, you got a gigantic bill. Weddings and drafts. The closer you get, the more you spend. So you look at this. Carolina at 4 could move up and give the Jets. They'll give them like a first-round pick or more. Then you go down, okay, Falcons may not. Dolphins have 2. Eagles won't draft another quarterback. Cowboys won't. Chargers won't. Giants won't. Lions. San Francisco would. Denver's going to consider it. Minnesota, New England. So I think 4 out of 15 teams. Patriots, Vikings, Broncos, Carolina, maybe 9, maybe 5. They're going to get a quarterback. And that means, and they're going to spend something. I mean, hell, the Jets gave up 3 second-round picks, I think it was, to get a quarterback in Sam Darnold, right? So the Jets already have all these picks. They're going to get multiple picks. Sam Darnold is still cheap. And now the job, because you're not getting Trevor Lawrence, is not as attractive. You're not going to get Urban Meyer now. You're not going to get an Urban Meyer, even if it's an Ohio State quarterback. You're not going to get Urban Meyer for Justin Fields and Sam Darnold. You're not going to get Lincoln Riley. You're not going to get Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator for the Bills. He's going to have his choice of jobs. It's not as attractive a job now. So are you sure? I'm going to go with Justin Fields, who I've watched play 4 times this year, and 3 of 4, I'm like, Ohio State's got way better personnel than Northwestern. I'm not sure. And my personnel people are saying, there's no guarantees with Justin Fields. Big question. You're not going to get as good a coach. The Jets can get more picks, keep Darnold, got a capable GM. What if somebody gave you a first and a second, and now you have the Jets 3 firsts and 2 seconds and 2 thirds, and then you get another number 1 next year, or somebody gives you a first and a starting corner who's a high-level player. I talked to one GM yesterday who said, I wouldn't want a ton of picks. I'd want 1 great pick and a starter somewhere. I don't want too many. I don't want to have 8 guys and give my new head coach 8 kids. I wouldn't mind having like a starting great corner and a first-round pick so you can move up 9 spots. So the world's changed on this thing. I think it's a big gap between, all right, Trevor Lawrence, you're going to get an Urban Meyer level guy, or a Brian Daboll, a great coordinator. That's a different conversation than Justin Fields, Sam Darnold. well, Sam's still cheap. A lot of cap space. A bunch of picks with Sam. The new GM, Joe Douglas, had a very good draft last year. Can he do it again? I don't know. I think I start looking around and everything changed. Maybe the Jets won't have leverage. Maybe Carolina says, we're not willing to do what you want to do. We'll stay with Teddy Bridgewater. We're almost winning with Teddy now with a bad defense and a rebuild. So I thought it was more than just losing Trevor Lawrence. I think it became a massive dilemma for the New York Jets. This morning, what would I do? I think I'd keep Sam Darnold. If somebody came and gave me a starting high-end corner to solve one of my problems, and I got another first-round pick and a third, and that's what somebody's going to do. I mean, folks, I was looking at this morning. Philadelphia gave up 5 picks 4 years ago to move up. You're kidding yourself if you don't think an NFL team, as we get close to the draft, is not going to move up and give 3 or 4 picks. This is we've watched this over and over and over again. They're going to start fight. Listen, if you don't have a quarterback in this league, Bill Belichick lost again. If you don't have the right guy at quarterback, Belichick got fired. Belichick's won 43% of his games. So, to me, this morning, I think I keep Sam Darnold. Get more picks. Keep building a fortress up. And then in 1 year, if Darnold's not what you think, you've rebuilt the O-line, you got a starting corner, you got multiple picks. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Unless somebody just, what you tell me? Am I nuts on this? Justin Fields, you watched them against Northwestern. I'm not rebooting the franchise for that. Now, if he comes out this week against, in 10 days or whatever, against Clemson, and Justin Fields chops it up and chops Clemson up, maybe I have a different opinion. This morning I keep Darnold. That's what I do. I keep Darnold. Coming up next, Colin, what do you make of Baker Mayfield? Colin, Baker Mayfield's really good. Why don't you talk about it? I will. Next, Colin right, Colin wrong, top of next hour.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
New streaming service called Discovery Plus starts next year, U.S. only. Great collection of real-life entertainment, favorite brands, and exclusive originals. The great Jimmy Johnson, one of the 5 best football coaches of my life. The Hall of Famer is going to be joining us in 10 minutes. Joy Taylor's got some great stuff, too. So, Baker Mayfield's rolling. So, the media doesn't like to be criticized. They don't like it. They like to sit up in their lofty perches. And I have a lofty perch, too, but I'm willing to go out there, have an opinion, and you take shots at me. It's been my whole career. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about what social media thinks of me. Most of my comments, I don't care what my bosses think of me. This is what I am. I lay it out. Some like me, some don't. I'm good with it, right? I work hard. We work hard. But the media tends to play it safe because they don't want pushback. So when guys like me came out, and there's only a couple in the country, that we said, Baker's better without OBJ. Oh, the pushback was like, well, are you so stupid, idiotic? You know what you're talking about. It is ridiculous to... It's not ridiculous at all. Have you ever had somebody in your life that you try to impress? A big brother? A boss? You're trying to impress somebody? Baker Mayfield walks into this league. Young quarterback. Here comes superstar OBJ. I mean, superstar. Best catch we've ever seen. New York Giants. Supermodels in Paris. And Baker, through no fault of his own or no fault of OBJ, is overcompensating. He's trying to feed the ball to OBJ. And what Baker's really good at is what you see now, a point guard. He's not the biggest guy, the best arm, the best athlete, but he's throw the ball accurately, mix it up, no pressure on Baker, find the open guy, hit him. He's a point guard now. So before OBJ got hurt, there was a play that Baker was throwing to him and OBJ got hurt. Since that play, when OBJ was not available, 15 touchdowns, 1 pick. With OBJ, 10 touchdowns, 7 picks. His passer rating with OBJ was 80. Without it, it's MVP stuff. It's Aaron Rodgers, 112. Now, I don't think Baker is Aaron Rodgers. But the point being is, it is not ridiculous or a hot take to suggest that a young quarterback, Dak with Dez, Baker with OBJ, is influenced by a wide receiver that is a star, established in the league, a home run threat, and you want to appeal to him. You want to curry favor like Dak with Dez or Baker with OBJ. I'm not pointing fingers and blaming people, but we've all had a big brother we try to impress, or a boss, or a coworker, or a woman, or a date we're trying to impress. It's natural. It's human. But Baker Mayfield's passer rating without OBJ is 112. That's Aaron Rodgers. So it's just he's a better quarterback. And the organization has been denying this OBJ trade thing. I've been on this thing for 2 years saying, move OBJ. He never wanted to be there. It doesn't fit. Do not put this burden on Baker Mayfield, who is clearly pressing to get the ball to OBJ. And it's not a hot take. It's not even disputable. And by the way, Baker's current numbers are actually depressed. Because Baker had to play 2 games at home in Cleveland in tsunamis. Remember that game against the Raiders when it was like 40-mile-an-hour winds? You couldn't land planes in Cleveland? He played 2 or 3 straight games at home where Baker couldn't throw the ball. The weather dictated it. So Baker's numbers would be better without OBJ. And when he had OBJ, he was throwing in better weather. Now he's throwing in worse weather, and his numbers are through the roof. It's not a hot take. It's the reality of humans. We're all trying to impress somebody. And young quarterbacks are vulnerable to star receivers who come with either an entourage or a reputation or an ego, or this is not a point fingers blame. It's a reality. Baker's simply a red-hot point guard who now can throw to anybody without overthinking who he has to throw to. Joy of the news.
Herd of the news. This is the Herd Line News.
A little college football drama on a Monday morning.
Love this.
Well, the playoffs are set. Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State took the top 3 spots after winning their conference championships Saturday, and the 4th spot went to Notre Dame.
People are upset.
Despite their 24-point loss to Clemson in the ACC title game. Well, obviously people are upset, and Dabo Swinney decided to add his 2 cents to the situation. He ranked Ohio State number 11 in the final coaches poll. His top 4 were Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M.
That's a fair ranking. Ohio State below Coastal Carolina is just poking the Buckeyes in the ribs, and I'll say this. Last year I said, I don't bet college football much, although occasionally I see a bowl game or something. And last year I made the biggest bet of my life on college football. Everybody said it was the best Big Ten Ohio State team ever, and I said, no, Clemson's going to win. Ohio State now has that memory. You got Clemson's coach ranking them 11. Also, Clemson faces probably Alabama next, so they are looking ahead to Alabama, where Ohio State is completely focused on Clemson. I'm just saying, the Buckeyes are a very interesting side this weekend.
I think they could make it close.
I don't know if they can beat them.
But Justin Fields was 12 for 27, 114 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions.
Yeah, he was
against Northwestern.
Yeah, I know. These are kids. Lou Holtz used to say, you get a different 18-year-old every weekend.
No, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I just think Ohio State doesn't have the personnel.
That's fair. And I think Clemson does. I worry about Ohio State on the back end of their defense. Trevor Lawrence. Clemson goes for it. They throw the ball over the top a lot.
I will say, though, the argument about Ohio State not having enough games, I don't want to say it's unfair, because I really don't believe in fair.
Yeah.
But Dabo's kind of putting himself in some, and I don't think he cares at all. And why should he? Because once Trevor Lawrence goes off to the NFL, he's got his next quarterback to slide right in, and he looks great too, and he's a freshman. So, Dabo is not in a position of concern for how good he's going to be for the next couple years. However, things can change on you, and he's just fully, I'm just saying, Dabo's fully embracing being the villain of college football. That comes with a price. I love villains, so I'm all in on it. But I like that he's putting himself against Ohio State. They have a very strong fan base, and that'll make for a very nice rivalry moving forward.
Wait for that game.
It's going to be great. So the Bills made it look easy, 48-19 over the Broncos on Saturday. Josh Allen had another incredible game, 359 passing yards and 4 total touchdowns. And with this win, the Bills officially ended the Patriots' 11-year run in the AFC East and clinched the division for the first time since 1995.
They have done. You got to give Sean McDermott and Brian Daboll credit. 2 years ago, Josh Allen was completing 53 of his throws. Out of Wyoming, Joy, we saw him play. Accuracy was a huge problem. He's now in the 69%. Some of this is Josh is terrific. Some of this is coaching. Like, this is really good coaching.
I don't know how you can argue that. I did not like Josh Allen for the first 2 years. Like, I was like, I mean, I think he's has potential, but like he's not capable and wasn't capable of winning a playoff game. He's playing incredible. And no, I think that there's something to it. Obviously, it's coaching, and they stuck with him and developed him, and clearly he has the talent and the disposition to be coached and developed, and everyone does it. But I do think this does speak to we're very quick to move off of young quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and the Bills are a stable organization
they're
as well.
Very well run.
It's not an organization I would describe as being dysfunctional. So they've got an incredible fan base. If you have some stability and in some ways a patient fan base, because it is Buffalo. Like, this is we're not making high demands of Buffalo as a country, right? Of fans. Buffalo Bills fans have expectations. Obviously, they're not an impatient franchise in general. Some fan bases just like they want results immediately, and sometimes it takes time to develop. Players, and we're showing some video of the Bills coming back.
Very happy for a city that truly that fan base truly loves their football team.
I love seeing this. This makes me happy. Finally, Jalen Hurts was impressive again in his second start for the Eagles Sunday. He threw for 338 yards, had 4 total touchdowns against the Cardinals, and after an early 16-point deficit, he had a chance at the end of the game. The drive stalled at the Arizona 31-yard line, and the Eagles ended up losing. Actually, all 3 of the plays at the end of the game were right where they needed to be.
I gotta tell you, this game was so entertaining. Kyler Murray made just enough mistakes to make it interesting. Jalen Hurts made just enough plays. I know the Kansas City and the Saints were on, but between the Rams getting upset and this game was. I just love these young quarterbacks. And again, they make more mistakes than I'm comfortable with, but the game is never out of reach. This was a really crazy fun. Well, we've said this for 2 years. Arizona may not be the best team in the league. They may be the best watch in the league.
Yeah, they're totally entertaining. And look, Arizona should have won this game. They're the better, more complete team.
They were.
So it ended how it was supposed to, but it was so fun to watch the entire time. And again, I'm just watching the Eagles with this lingering thought of what are they going to do? Like, not only is Jalen playing well, he's exciting. So it's not like they were like this was an ugly, hideous loss. Like, they're right there. If they had one, it wouldn't have been surprising.
You were feeling disappointed with Eagle wins, and you feel optimistic with their losses.
Yes.
There's a sensibility with them watching Jalen. It's like, oh, this is exciting. We're in the game. We're not wasting opportunities.
It's getting really interesting.
It really is. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping.
The Herd Line.
Well, to me, he's one of the top 2 or 3 coaches of my lifetime. The Bill Walshes, the Belichick's, the Jimmy Johnsons, and he joins me a couple times a year, and I always feel very fortunate. Fox Sports NFL analyst, a Hall of Famer, long overdue when he got it, and he's joining me from the Keys, where he always looks rested and comfortable. Brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Okay, Coach. Good Lord, the Jets can't even lose right, Jimmy. They can't even figure out how to lose. So now, Jimmy, you got the number 2 pick, and there's a difference between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Do you start over with Fields, or do you keep Darnold and take those picks and rebuild? What would you do?
Yeah, Colin, I don't know that Justin Fields is that big an upgrade over Sam Darnold. I still think that Sam Darnold's got talent. I question how he's been coached the last few years and the supporting cast. But I'd like to see better players around Sam Darnold and use some of those picks to bring in players. Now, you might even, take that number 2 pick and get you a bonanza, as far as people moving up trying to get Justin Fields or another great player. So you can add to your arsenal by trading that pick to a team that's desperate.
Do you think, Jimmy, you'd never want to move up to get a quarterback if you were a Belichick or a good team, and then you don't move up far enough and somebody jumps you. So do you think the people that are interested in a quarterback and calling the Jets, do you think they'll do it now early or they'll wait until draft day? What would you suspect would happen?
I think they would wait until late because, the price just goes up. closer you get to the draft. You get other teams, bidding. Now, obviously, I mean, that's as far as the Jets are concerned. If you're one of the teams wanting to move up, if you can solidify a deal right now, then that's fine because it's going to be cheaper than if you wait until the draft.
Okay.
You get teams competing for that pick, the price is going to go up.
Jimmy, I'm watching Kansas City, and you had 3 or 4 great all-time teams in the NFL. You had several in college, and I said, I know your record's important, but I look. When you get closer to the playoffs, I start looking at stuff like red zone stats. Are you situationally good? And I look at Kansas City, and I can see him facing a Derrick Henry or a Cleveland offensive line or the Colts, and I can see that Patrick Mahomes sitting on the sideline watching the game. I do think they're really vulnerable. Do you?
I was asked on the show yesterday as far as who's the biggest threat to Kansas City. And, you might say, well, Buffalo, because Buffalo's really hot right now. Their quarterback is playing great. You might say Tennessee because of the way they run the football and they can control the clock, control the game. But I think the biggest threat to Kansas City is really Kansas City. Brett Veach, I talked to him just not too long ago. He wanted me to autograph a picture that we took when they were here at the Super Bowl with Brett and Andy Reid. And I told him, I said, yeah, you are looking great. He said, as long as we stay healthy, he said, we'll be fine. And that's what I believe. If they're healthy and if they're prepared and if they're not overconfident, if they understand who they're playing, and the strength of their opponent, they'll be fine. They're the best. They're the most talented team in the NFL. And when you have a quarterback like that, Terry Bradshaw called me this morning. He said, I watched Mahomes. He said, it's unbelievable some of the throws that he makes and some of the things he does. He's just such a special talent.
Yeah. So I watched the Miami Dolphins yesterday, a franchise you coached in an area and a team, and you know a lot of people in that organization. And I got to tell you, Jimmy, Brian Flores, this team reminds me of Belichick early in New England with Brady. They win a lot of 2016 ugly. They're resourceful. Yesterday, they were missing 4 of their top 5 scrimmage yard performers. Players become more replaceable. And Tua, like an early Brady, is coachable, doesn't turn the ball over. I think we got a hit. Maybe am I being a little hyper here, but I think Brian Flores, I watch him. Jimmy, I see Belichick.
Yeah, I spent some time with him this offseason, and I was thoroughly impressed. Their team, they play so hard. He gets tremendous effort out of his players. He's got a bunch of young guys, a lot of players that nobody's ever heard of,
right,
that are really performing. And he's getting the most out of his players. And, that's what Bill did in his great run is, a lot of the players that, other teams might not even want, he made them productive. He was able to utilize, certain guys that could do maybe one thing, and he could put them in the ball game and let him do that one thing. And so Brian, he learned well from Bill. And then on the other side, that's going to be a struggle up there in New England. But New England's got a bunch of cap money. They've got some opt-outs that are going to be coming back next year, but they still got to find them a quarterback.
Yeah, and they're not very dynamic on the offensive side, at least on the perimeter. They could use some speed. So I said this, and I said this about 2 years ago. I said sometimes young quarterbacks come into this league, and if they have a star receiver, it feels like they feel like they need to appeal to him. And I totally get. I'm not blaming anybody, but I watch Baker without OBJ. Jimmy, he's like a different player. Did you ever have a situation like that?
No. Michael Irvin wanted it to be like that, but I wouldn't let him. I made sure that Troy threw the ball other places. Yeah, and I heard what you said about Baker, and yes, a lot of it is on Baker as far as when he had OBJ, but also the play caller. The play caller is going to design plays for his star receiver. Well, the only thing is the opponent knows that as well. And so they're going to do some things to take away your star receiver. If you actually just take the approach, especially if you have balance with your receivers and your tight end, if you take the approach, you just take what the defense gives us and not try to force the ball to any one player, you're going to be much better off, and that's what we're seeing with Baker Mayfield.
Should a team like... Did you ever have a great team that had a bad late season loss? Like, I like the Rams a lot. That's a clunker yesterday. Should I take... early in the season, the Colts lost to the Jags, but it's September, it's week 1. I don't worry, they're a different team. Do late season losses concern you, Jimmy?
No, but I'll give you an example. The last loss that I ever had in Dallas was really a heartbreaker. We were playing the Miami Dolphins in the snow, and of course, the game. The Leon Lett touches the field goal, and we had the better team. We were favored. We were at home. But because of the snow and because of the mistake that we made in the kicking game, we lost the game. But that was the last loss that I ever had in Dallas. We went right ahead and won the rest of the season, won every game, and won the Super Bowl. So I think you can bounce back from that. I don't think the Rams look at this loss to the Jets and say, "Oh, we've got a bad team." It's just one of those things that happen. Hey, let's rally back. Let's correct our mistakes. We're a good football team, and let's go forward.
As a coach, finally, Jimmy Johnson, the Hall of Famer, there are some things, Jimmy, that are correctable. And then I wonder if there are mistakes that you just know as a coach. We just don't have the personnel. I look at Pittsburgh. They play tonight, right? And I say to myself, Jimmy, Ben, because of that surgery, can't throw the ball deep. I don't think it's correctable. I don't think people fear him going over the top. I think it's hurting their running game. Now, that's my perception. Is that a correctable flaw? Or are there things as a coach you just tell your coaches, not publicly, guys, this is what we are right now?
I don't think that they can accept that. I looked at the Steelers back before they lost the last couple of games, and every route was a 4-yard route. Everything was underneath, and it was a dink and dunk, to get rid of the ball in 2 seconds. And, I said before they even lost games, I said, teams that are talented, they're going to crowd those receivers. They're not going to let them throw those little 4 and 5-yard routes and those bubble screens. And if they do that, then they're going to have a running game, or they're going to have to throw it deep. I think, as far as the coaching staff with the Steelers, they've got to force the ball deep. They've got to force. Even if it's less than 3 yards a carry, they've got to run the football. They cannot just go into every game saying we're going to throw 3 and 4 yard routes and win the game. You get up against good teams in the playoffs, that's not going to work. So they've got to have some balance offensively.
Jimmy
By the way, I got a pretty good. Hey, 2 of my favorite players right here.
Who? Oh,
Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas.
Look at your handsome brother.
I noticed it right away.
You noticed it?
Jimmy's family.
Jimmy's family. I love that. Coach, great seeing you. Have a great holiday, Jimmy.
Okay, Merry Christmas, Colin. Enjoy.
All right. Well, Jimmy's kind of with me on this. Is that Sam Darnold, Justin Fields?
He's right.
I think I just built
that game did not do Justin Fields any favors.
No, and maybe against Clemson, we all go, okay. But it's like the gap between Justin and Sam, wouldn't I rather just keep Sam, build a fortress of picks, and if Sam stinks next year, it's just 1 year in the big picture, then you go get another guy, and the next kid, the new coach gets to pick who he wants for his system, and it's a better group of players.
It's not going to sound sexy to Jets fans, but it's probably the more prudent thing to do.
Right.
But this all hinges on how he plays in this.
It really does. Like if he throws up a stinker, let's say Clemson rolls Ohio State, I think the Jets are like, we're keeping Sam Darnold. I think you would. Coming up next, Brady. What I predicted and what he's become. Pretty interesting. Plus, Colin right, Colin wrong. Top of next hour.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
RecTech Grills, built by grillers for grillers this holiday season. Grill it right up. RecTechWithAQ.com. Smart grill technology. You can turn the grill on and off from your phone. So we went back this morning, and we like to make predictions. It's harder, obviously, to make predictions before a season starts than once a season is. You see the injuries pile up. You're making a lot of guesses. I thought Minnesota would be good this year. Not happening. I thought Baltimore. By the way, everybody bangs on me about Baltimore. You predicted 16-0. Well, I told Joy when I did that. have predicted 14-2, but I thought it was more fun to go 16-0 because you guys would all freak out. But I thought they would win the division. I thought they'd be the first or second best team in the league. 16-0, 15-1, what's it matter? Just got you guys all worked out. But I did think they'd be way better than they are. But I still think Baltimore, by the way, is going to end up 11-5, and they're really good. But I made a prediction. We looked it up this morning, June 12th, for Tom Brady. And I said at the time, Joy was here, I said it's going to be very Matt Ryan-esque. So I went and looked at Matt Ryan's numbers, and I predicted Tom would go 10-6, have a 2-1 touchdown to interception ratio. You can look at the numbers there. Our television audience. For the radio audience, I predicted 28 touchdowns, 13 picks, a 64% completion percentage, and 95.5 passer rating. That is really Matt Ryan. So what is the reality? The reality is his touchdown to interception ratio, 32-11, is 3-1. I'm pretty darn close on both the passer rating and completion percentage. He's slightly better, 2% better, 1% better than I predicted for both. The reality is he's going to go 10-6 or 11-5. So I was very, very accurate, except he's been his touchdown to interception ratio has been much better than I thought. You know, and I'm watching them yesterday, and here my two takeaways on Brady is he's not the problem. If they've got a problem, it's their secondary. It's kind of a mess. It's young, talented, and gets burnt a lot. Atlanta just torched it early. So their issue is not Brady. He is having a better than Matt Ryan year. And the other thing is, how many quarterbacks in the NFL trail 17-0 at half, and you still feel like I did yesterday as Tampa's fine? Mahomes, obviously. Aaron Rodgers, not as much. Russell Wilson. Kind of like it was 17-0. I never felt they were. I kind of felt like they're gonna figure this thing out. The second thing is Tampa's gonna be has a potential to be a nightmare in the first round for somebody. Green Bay, they blew them out and they match up really well with them. Seattle, their offense has gone in hiding for 5 weeks. Saints, Breeze looks really old. Rams, get pressure on Jared Goff. We saw it yesterday. They're not the same team. So Brady's not the issue to me. The issue is sometimes the coaching staff running the football more. That's the issue. The issue is the back end is really young, and against an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, or even a Jared Goff, you could see that secondary being a huge, huge problem. But I think Brady, if you're fair about it and honest about it, and I said this last week, Aaron Rodgers is having an amazing year. But Aaron Rodgers' numbers last year with a new coach, just a new coach, not a new city, not a new house, not a new roster, not new wide receiver, just a new coach. Aaron Rodgers' numbers last year weren't as good as Brady's this year. And Brady was asked to move his family, new weather, new state, new conference. Didn't know these. He didn't know these defensive coordinators. I mean, Aaron knew exactly who he was facing. New division, new conference, new receivers, new playbook, new coach, new coordinators. And his numbers are better than Aaron Rodgers, at least in completion, passer rating, and touchdown passes. Here was Arians after the game praising Tom Brady.
He's just a winner. You know, he knows how to do it. And I don't know about my history, but if you're talking about last year, but Tom has always been a fourth quarter player, and you know, we won a lot of games in Arizona in the fourth quarter, so it's kind of what we expect to do.
Yeah, they're good. I don't think they're a Super Bowl winning team, but I think there's like I'll give you an example. I think the Colts are just a big pain in the butt to play. I just wouldn't want to play the Colts in the AFC because they're going to come in as a dog, and all your fans think you're supposed to beat them. And then that Jonathan Taylor now is becoming a stud, and then they lean on you, and your star quarterback sits over there and watches Jonathan Taylor run for 140 yards, and you never get the ball back. That's what happened to Aaron Rodgers. Wouldn't want to play Tampa. Wouldn't want to play the Colts. Don't think either right now this morning is a Super Bowl winning team. Colin right, Colin wrong. Top of hour 2 on a Monday. Live in LA. It's The Herd. Thanks for listening to The Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
us hour 2 on a Monday. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. Don't love my hair today. I'm not going to be real pleased after the show looking at the tape of this one. Don't like it. Not working for me at all.
Best hair day.
Joy looks ravishing. You look so
Thank you.
holiday-ish.
Well, I'm bringing all my sparkles this week.
Are you?
Yes.
Big sparkle week?
Yes.
You know, Goulet, if you were to heavy sparkles to start the new year, I think it could add a little glamour to our show.
Oh, you're a Cowboys fan. You know?
Why not? It's great to have you in. Now, we have a dilemma on the show.
What's that?
Well, Uncle Colin's now on a heater. I've been hot with my picks.
Oh.
And this week I'm off, so do I do a Blazing Five? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do a Blazing Five because I'm off. I'm going to be hanging out with the kids, managing the family. So, but I am going to sprinkle in a couple, and when I sprinkle them, I'll tell you, this counts against my record.
So they are going to count.
Well, but I'm not doing a Blazing Five. But I'm going to give you a couple picks.
Okay.
So let's do it. Let's do our Colin right, Colin wrong on a Monday. Here we go.
Where Colin was right.
Blazing 5, 4-1, third winning week in a row. We picked Miami to beat New England. We said Arizona was going to beat the Eagles. We picked Washington to keep it close but lose, and we got a little lucky on New Orleans late. So for the first time this year, we are over 500. I've never had a losing season. This means a lot to me. 37, 36, and 2, and I'll sprinkle in a couple picks over the weekend.
Where Colin was wrong.
I remember when Josh Allen got drafted, of the 5 quarterbacks in the first round, I said he's got the biggest bust potential. Yeah, that's not happening. He may be the 3rd best quarterback in the league. He is on fire. First of all, in college, in his rookie year, he was just inaccurate, like below bad. Now he completes 69% of his throws. Folks, do you understand what he did this weekend? He dropped 48 points on one of the best defensive coaches in the NFL on the road, off a win over the Steelers. 48 on Vic Fangio, who is absolutely one of your top 5 or 6 defensive minds in the NFL. He ain't Belichick, but he's really good. And this thing, they had stuff called back. This kid is absolutely on fire. I never thought this early he would be this good. Some of it's coaching, but I was wrong.
Where Colin was right.
3 weeks ago, Lamar Jackson, the Ravens lost back-to-back games to New England, Tennessee. Everybody bailed. Not Uncle Colin. I doubled down and said, Lamar's the best athlete in the league. He wins a lot. He's young. Give him time. Since those losses, he's 3-0, 6 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, 120 passer rating, and completing 71% of his throws. And by the way, the Jags have played a lot of good teams close. That thing was a beatdown yesterday. Here's my takeaway on Lamar. Not everything has to look the same to be successful. The dude wins 78% of his games. And he's younger than Joe Burrow. He's never going to be Mahomes from the pocket. But I got to tell you this, 99% of the players that have ever played it can't run that offense. And he's accurate enough to win 78% of his games. I like it.
Where Colin was wrong.
I whiffed on the Vikings. I mean, good. I had them winning their division. They're a mess. They made Mitch Trubisky look like, Favre yesterday. David Montgomery ate him up. I like Mike Zimmer. Kirk Cousins is capable. But they're just not right. Now, some of it is injuries and free agent losses on the defensive side. And so they weren't going to be as good defensively. Yesterday they were atrocious. And they have some bad losses. I mean, the Dallas loss was bad to Andy Dalton. They got blown out by Atlanta. So you guys think I missed on my Steeler pick. This is actually my worst pick. And I like this organization. I completely whiffed. I thought the Vikings would win their division and win playoff games.
Where Colin was right.
I always tell you with Jared Goff, comfortable, you ain't beating him. Uncomfortable, watch out. Yesterday was classic golf. Jets put pressure on him. No quarterback in the NFL, except Baker Mayfield, goes from good to bad with pressure like Goff. In a clean pocket, his passer rating is 102, 107. In a under pressure, it's 46. And yesterday's the prime. This is why I wouldn't touch this game, because the Jets have a very good run defense, and I thought, just stay away from this game. This has like ugly Ram performance. And yesterday, this is what Goff is, and I like Goff, but this is why they have to address their offensive line. Under pressure, he is very, very weak. With composed, he's like a Pro Bowler. He throws a beautiful ball. But this is what Goff has become, and it's fairly predictable.
Where Colin was right.
The Jonathan Taylor draft pick by the Colts. I went on I'm yelling and screaming. I love the pick. I thought it was one of the best second-round picks ever. He's become the dog. Now, it's taken a while. Early in the season, we didn't have a preseason. Joy and I talked about this. You can't judge rookies the same. They're going to be lost in September. But in the last 4 games, he's got 4 rushing touchdowns. He's now a top 10 rushing back in the NFL. I loved him at Wisconsin. Burns a track guy. He can run. He's powerful. He can make you miss. I said he was the best back out of the Big Ten since Zeke. I think he's comparable to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley's a little flashier. I think this kid's an absolute home run. It's just no preseason. It took him 8-9 weeks to get in this coaching staff into the groove. But what a pick and what a player this kid is.
Where Colin was wrong.
Well, 3 weeks ago, I had John Gruden Coach of the Year. Since then, he's lost 4 of 5. And let's be honest, the Raiders are now consistently a bad December team. I mean, you're talking losing to Atlanta by 37, losing to Tampa by 25. I don't have the answer for it, but you can go back even to his Tampa days. Something about what Gruden does, is it the kind of corrosive quarterback relationship thing? I don't know what the answer is, but I jumped the gun. They are a bad December football team. There's no other way around it, and that's on the coach. Well-coached teams get better late, not worse.
Where Colin was right.
I said when the Seahawks went and acquired Carlos Dunlap from the Bengals, I said that kid's been buried for years. Long athletic. He's going to solve Seattle's big problem. Well, he's been terrific. In fact, since Jamal Adams came back from injury and Carlos Dunlap has arrived, Seattle's defense, I think, is top 2 in the NFL. He's got 4.5 sacks in 6 games. He is super athletic. And you know what? When you watch him play, he plays like a young player. A lot of defensive linemen's motors are hit and miss. Dunlap's one of those guys where he is going constantly. He's a good kid and a great player in a bad franchise, and this happens. He just got buried, and it didn't work, but he has been exactly what Pete Carroll and John Schneider thought he was going to be. He has resurrected a bad pass rush into one of the top 4 or 5 pass rushes in the NFL.
Where Colin was right.
Jimmy Garoppolo, say what you want. He won in college. He won in New England. He wins in San Francisco. The Niners with Kyle Shanahan, who we acknowledge is a great coach. They're now 2-6 this year without Jimmy Garoppolo. Got to the Super Bowl with him. Kyle Shanahan, a great coach, has won 6 NFL games as a coach without Jimmy Garoppolo, 6-26. And I think we all understand that starting quarterback, backup quarterback, there is a gap. But one of the things I like about Garoppolo, he's not into stats, he's kind of a winning player, is that he'll make mistakes, but he'll just let it rip. He's not a guy that hesitates in his body language. Maybe it's because he's such a good-looking kid. He's always had confidence. He plays with a lot of confidence. Now, when he struggles, Kyle Shanahan just takes the ball out of his hands. But he's never been a kid affected by a loss, affected by a pick. He comes out, lets it rip, and he is... They lost to Dallas yesterday without Jimmy Garoppolo and had 4 turnovers.
Where Colin was right.
Finally, a lot of rights this week. Everybody wants a college football plan. And I've always said, folks, it doesn't matter. If we have 4, you'll complain about 2 that didn't make it. If we have 8, you'll complain about 9 and 10. So now Ohio State gets in, and everybody wants A&M and Oklahoma in. It doesn't matter. In college basketball, they let in, 68 teams? And Dick Vitale and Jay Billis are screaming about, some directional school, 69. Everybody always feels like, as big as the country club is, the person that doesn't get in thinks he's being jobbed, robbed, or treated poorly. The college football playoff has never been this magic elixir to solve the problems. You still complain about one of the teams not getting in. I don't care who gets in at number 4. It doesn't matter. You're just signing up to get your arse kicked by Alabama. Notre Dame's a 20-point underdog. A&M would be a 17, 18-point underdog. Oklahoma, and I think Lincoln Riley's great, does not match up at all with Alabama. They don't. They couldn't stop them. So the college football rankings, I'm just fine with it. As long as you give me Ohio State, Bama, and Clemson, I don't care who the 4th is. It doesn't matter. They're all going to be huge underdogs to the 3 teams ahead of them. Colin right, Colin wrong. All right. Good stuff. How much time? Oh, don't even have time to get to other good stuff. I'm so blown away by Miami this weekend. Isn't it amazing? We all know that you need a bunch of stuff, but if you get the quarterback right and you get the coach right, Buffalo, 3 years ago, you couldn't have Miami 3 years ago. You couldn't have paid me to watch Miami. I cannot take my eyes off the Bills and the Dolphins. You got the coach right. You got the quarterback right. And you know, what's funny about coaching is my next guest, Trent Dilfer, is a coach. I could never be a coach. But I can spot bad coaching. And I can spot good coaching. Watching the Bills Saturday and watching the Dolphins, these are so smartly tuned. Miami is so resourceful. They were missing 4 of their top 5 scrimmage yards.
Isn't it just a pleasure to just like watch good football?
It really is. Everybody's like, you just love football. No, I don't. I don't love crappy football. I love watching Buffalo and Miami. And I said this for 20 years. New England was boring. But every New England game looked the same. Like 3 penalties or less, 4 penalties, no turnovers. They do 1 trick play a Sunday, and they beat you by 8. And you'd walk off the turf if you're the opposing team thinking, we have better players than them. I just love what Miami's doing right now and what Buffalo's doing. Trent Dilfer around the corner.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Christmas Day is an NFL special as the Vikings take on the Saints. Coverage begins at 3:30 Eastern on Fox, also available on NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video.
Very exciting. Hanging out with family watching football.
Get a lot of football this week.
We really do.
And NBA.
NBA starts
Tomorrow.
Oh, it does. Interesting. All right, here we go. Trent Dilfer, 15 years in the NFL, a Super Bowl, got one of those trophies, Super Bowl ring, and Pro Bowl as well. He's my buddy. He's joining me now. With his family as well. Okay, so I had Jimmy Johnson on earlier, and I said, listen, you do this for a living, but Trevor Lawrence is here, Justin Fields is here, and I think there's a gap. And with Trevor Lawrence, we don't need to argue. You take him over Sam. He's generational. Justin Fields, I watch him and I think, I got pause on that. So you tell me, do you stick with Darnold? He's still cheap. You keep building the fortress with picks, and then the next coach gets to pick his guy. He's got a better team. I mean, where do you go with that now, Trent?
Well, let's see how it shakes out over the next couple weeks. But I don't think the gap between Lawrence and Fields is as big as many say. I think it's very small, actually. I think Justin Fields is also a generational talent. I went last week, and because I'd heard the narratives, and I just watched kind of the big boy throws of Justin Fields. So I went through and did the cut-up of just tight window throws, deep out-breaking throws, big ball throws, chaos in the pocket throws, and you can put Justin Fields' tape up against anybody. The kid's a superior athlete. He's become a phenomenal passer of the football in the last calendar year. He's worked incredibly hard at it. I think he likes this underdog role. I think he likes everybody talking about Trevor Lawrence being the far and away the best player in the draft. I think the more work that's done on these guys, and again, most of the scouts, most of the coaches haven't done all their work. We start these narratives, so you get these TV scouts that are doing the work, the Daniel Jeremiah, the Todd McShay, they do a great job, but the actual teams haven't done the work yet. Once they start doing the work, you're going to hear a lot more narratives that the gap between Lawrence and Fields is not as big as everybody's saying at this point.
So I went back to my predictions on Tom Brady and today, and he's actually about 8% better across the board. I said I thought he'd be very Matt Ryan-esque. He's been a little better than that. Your thoughts on what you see, what's transpired going forward? Tom yesterday, big halftime deficit, it didn't really bother him. What do you see so far?
Win protect is still one of the best players in all of football. Has total mastery, sideline to sideline. Obviously, his arm hasn't diminished at all. Those narratives were hilarious listening to him. But he needs to be protected, especially in a newer offense. He also needs the support of a good run game so they can set up the play action. They've been phenomenal in play action. Once they've established the run game, and that helps with protection as well. Where they've struggled is when they tried to spread teams out, play spread football, and also go down the field. They kind of need to go in and out. So when they're spread, it needs to be tight, quick passing game, much like Tom did with the Patriots. When they condense it, they need to go big, run the football, play action, chunk type plays. When they find that balance and they protect Tom, he's phenomenal. And that defense is hit or miss, man. It's a blitz-oriented defense. Yeah. He's always been that way. When they start dialing him up right, they can be ferocious on defense, but they can get gashed as well. So it's going to be interesting going to the playoffs. fine in the playoffs if it fits them or not.
There's a saying, you are what your record is, but you're also what my eyes see. And Pittsburgh wasn't as good as their record 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I said, listen, I'm watching the game. They don't throw over the top. There's a way to defend them. I watch Kansas City now, and I just feel like, man, maybe they have a switch they flip, but they're leaving a lot of stuff out there. New Orleans was really missing all their receivers. Where do you land with Kansas City today?
I don't remember if I said it on this show last week. I think their floor is so high they're unbeatable. I agree. They get they lollygag around sometimes, and they look sloppy and they look frenetic. And then you look at the score at the end of the game, and they still put 35 on you. They still find a way to convert 3rd and 12s, which nobody converts in the NFL. They still find a way to run out the clock when they have a 4-point lead with 4 minutes to go. Like, they kind of can flip a switch, and I've never been a believer in flipping a switch, but they can. Their bad is better than most teams' good. Their best is far and superior, better than everybody else. And when they do flip the switch, they seem unbeatable. I don't see them losing unless the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, has a catastrophically bad day turning it over. And they can absorb a turnover of 2. The only way they lose is if he turns it over 4+ times.
I was saying, I don't like all football. I like well-coached football, and it is amazing. Between Tua and Brian Flores, I cannot take my eyes off the Miami Dolphins. I guess the word I would use is resourceful. When I watch them, I just think, God, they just get the most out of everybody. As a coach who got his team to a state championship, somebody that studies this stuff, what do you see with Miami?
They get it. I stole this line. I think I heard Parcells say, get the most from the least and the best from the best. I think that's the secret sauce of all coaching and building organizations. You want to get the most from your bottom, the least, and the best from your best. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes because many coaches kind of lean towards the development model and getting the most from the basement and kind of getting your average guys to be good. There's other coaches that are really good at getting your elite guys to be great and they ignore the rest. The great builders, the Parcells, the Belichicks, those guys, Cowher, those guys, they can do both. And I think Flores is one of those guys that can do both. He's built an organization that when you're missing people and you have your least, he gets the most from them. And he also gets the best from the best, the Parkers, the Tuas. I think what he's done with Tua has been a great fit. I think this is why they liked Tua so much. The big myth about Tua going in was he wasn't as cerebral as the rest. I've spent a lot of time with Tua. Tua's as good a football mind as you'll find. Once he gets the why behind something, he has total mastery of it. And I think he has mastery of what they're trying to do in Miami. It's not flashy, it's not sizzly, it's not the sexiest offense in the world, but it's the right offense for this team so that your average or least can play better, and then your best guys can play their best.
Yeah, I really like watching Tua play. And that was he made one little bad throw near the end zone. Other than that, nice playmaker down there, runs. Like you said, very short space quickness. In little boxes, he can make people miss. I don't know, you didn't have many great receivers in your career, so this maybe not analogous to you, but I said it is difficult. We have to understand, if you come into the NFL, Dak and Baker, and you have a star receiver, and I'm not blaming the receiver, but the reality is we've all had an older brother in our life we wanted to impress, or a boss, and I look at Baker and OBJ, and I'm not blaming anybody, but it always felt like he was really trying to get OBJ the ball. OBJ leaves, and his passer rating's 112. I know it goes contrarian to what most people think, which is the better receivers, the better the quarterback. But I watch Baker now, and I'm like, God, he's a really effective point guard. Like, he looks like he's just happy, he's content, he's not strained. I mean, so in your career, did you see it happen or deal with it yourself where a more talented guy leaves and it actually freed you up?
I've never dealt with it, but I've talked to quarterbacks that dealt with it. I've seen it from a coaching perspective as well. I think here's the easiest way to think about it, because you're right, we're not blaming OBJ. I mean, I would love to have him as a receiver, and I'm sure Baker would too. But what happens is this, and please understand the difference here. If you are running an offense where you're going to throw it 40 times a game, you're going to spread people out, you're going to go sideline to sideline, you're going to say, okay, where's the grass? Let's go find the grass in the passing game. Then you definitely want as many skill guys as possible. You want all 5 eligibles to be dynamic players. If you're running an offense that's balanced, that's more condensed, that is under center more than any team in football, and that's the Cleveland Browns. You want an alpha. You want really good players, but you don't necessarily want skill everywhere because it puts too much pressure on the play caller and the quarterback to make them happy. Because let's not forget, you want to get it to that back, whether it's a one-headed monster or two-headed monster, 30-plus times a game. You want to control the game with the running game. You want to set up play action. You want to create isolations in the secondary. Now, OBJ could do that, and he would be great if he was the only guy there. But as OBJ left and Cleveland found their identity, it was this kind of perfect storm of Baker finding peace as a quarterback in the NFL with what they're doing. And with what they're doing and who they want to be, you don't need an alpha at every skill position. You need one, Landry. You need another really good player, Higgins. But more than anything else, you need those backs in the backfield and those bigs in the offensive line to feel like they're the reason you're winning games offensively, and that's what Cleveland's fallen into.
Good stuff. Happy holidays to you and your fam up in the area you're at. You look happy, and we'll talk soon. All right, buddy.
Thanks, brother. Enjoy your Christmas.
So Jimmy's with me on the Darnold thing, and Trent's like, hey, I think Justin Fields is closer to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I can't wait for it. I mean, listen, actually winning a couple games now for Darnold is actually good for the Jets. If the Jets won a couple times, now Darnold gets a better draft pick. If you want to move off him, get a better draft pick for Sam.
Yeah, I mean, you did it now.
I mean, you blew it.
You might as well keep winning.
Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Lovely football weekends. First time since 2008, Patriots will not have a spot in the playoffs.
How about that?
I'm going to be a little petty, but the Dolphins were the ones to seal that fate.
They are New
22-12
England.
loss.
They look like New England.
They do, actually.
If you go back, Joy, to the early New England, like the first 2 or 3 Super Bowls, this is what New England looked like. A very coachable young quarterback who didn't make mistakes, was accurate, and they would win 2016, and they would beat teams in playoff games in the Super Bowl, and you're like, they don't have as many good players as that team.
I still think they're a year away from really having a solid place in the NFL where we know legitimately what they are and what their identity is. They need a few more pieces.
They need a back, a receiver. I like their tight ends. Most of the picks I think they need are on the offensive side.
Well, yeah, I mean, their defense has been playing incredible. The loss also clinched New England's first season with a 500 record or worse since 2000, the first year of the Belichick era, when the Patriots finished 5-11. Now, the Patriots have 7 picks in the upcoming draft. They forfeited their 3rd-round pick due to the illegal filming of the Bengals sideline.
Yeah.
But they're going to be in a different situation next year. Talked a little bit about this earlier. They have 8 opt-outs coming back. More and more, I don't see Cam in New England next year. The way that this season is ending. But again, when it comes to Bill Belichick, he's earned the right for me to just wait and see what his plan is. Like, I don't believe any of this is an accident.
Well, first year of the divorce, Tom's clearly won.
Right.
That we can't dispute. The question becomes, it goes back to the Peter King rumor on Matt Stafford. If they do that, then all of a sudden, I think Tampa and New England could look a lot like each other, which is not good enough to move through a Kansas City or a Green Bay. On their side of the bracket, but really quality football team.
Well, it's a long play situation here for Belichick, right? Like, Brady is not going to play past next season. We're assuming, right? Like, we're watching the final years of Brady's career.
Yeah.
Belichick, not so much. But the difference is, as towards my gloating at the beginning of this story, the AFC East is a little bit different now. The Dolphins are a legitimate team. The Bills are very, very good, and they have their quarterback for the next 10 years.
Well,
now, I would like to wait and see what happens if their offensive coordinator leaves. I still think that Josh Allen is a great player, but that can change things.
Could I make an argument the 2 best young coaches in football right now, Sean McDermott and Brian Flores, are certainly in the category. So that's now Belichick's new reality. Oh wait, they have 2 in Josh Allen.
Yeah,
So
I don't trust anything that the Jets are going to do because they haven't earned that, but they're going to do something. So we don't know what they're going to be next year.
they have a capable general manager. I texted 2 different people yesterday and I said, thoughts about Joe Douglas. Both said the same thing.
Everyone loves him.
Absolutely knows what he's doing.
And they have a zillion picks.
Yep.
So it's gonna be interesting what the long-term view of this divorce looks like, which may take another decade to find out. So the Falcons led the Bucs by as many as 17 points, but it was not enough to hold on to the win. Gotta be honest with you, it didn't matter how many points Atlanta was up. We always knew that there was a chance that it was going to come back because it's Atlanta. It was scored on 5 straight possessions to start the second half to get a 31-27 victory over Atlanta. It was the Bucs' 9th win of the season and puts the team closer to their first playoff appearance since 2007. Tom Brady was 31 of 45, 390 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. This is the 3rd time that the Falcons have blown a significant lead this season. Obviously, the 20-point lead against the Cowboys and a 16-point lead against the Bears. And this is what Atlanta does.
So I was going to pick Atlanta and 5.5 this weekend, and I did not. But Goulet told me don't, because I don't want to deal with you on Monday when you lose the Falcons pick. So Atlanta is
I thought about that the whole game because at halftime I was like, I wonder if Colin is watching us or seeing us score right now. Like, I knew to take Atlanta, and then at the end of it, I was like, it's.
I'm so bad with Atlanta. Not only do I lose when I have them, when I get talked out of it, they win. I'm on the wrong side of them every single time.
It didn't take a lot of effort. I just said, hey, you picked Atlanta, and you went, oh, that's right. And you took them out.
Well, no, I knew. I mean, it's my misery.
I did the right thing.
Ramen 4 straight nights in a row because of this team this year. Thank God I'm hot in December. I wouldn't be eating.
Finally, the Packers got the 24-16 win over the Panthers and improved to 11-3 on the season. They have a good hold on the 1 seed in the NFC, but Aaron Rodgers was still disappointed with how the offense played in the second half on Saturday.
We just have put together a 4-quarter game. We've had some really good stretches, I think, in that stretch, but just not 4 quarters of football way too many times. It is frustrating, but we're 11-3. We won the game. That's a good problem to have. We just know that type of football in the second half, not going to get it done in the playoffs.
I think he's right about that. They only had 49 yards of offense in the second half, but I don't think there's anything to panic about.
I don't know. I mean, listen, Kansas City and Green Bay, perhaps as the top 2 scoring teams, it is so effortless offensively. Not that they get bored, but it's hard to be urgent. It's like when the Jets beat the Rams, everybody's freaking out, and I'm like, this is not college. The Jets had come off a bad team off a horrible loss. The Rams a good team off a win, and you're trying to convince all these LA players, oh, you better be ready to play. And they weren't for the first half. They just weren't ready to play.
And I say this all the time, players don't tank.
That's right. Teams do it when the good play. These guys are all. Remember, think how good Alabama's run has been for a decade.
The Jets would beat Alabama right now, today, after playing
50-0
yesterday, 50 easily.
So just think about this. Think how good Alabama is. 50% of their players don't play in the NFL, and of the ones that do, most are never great. Like, it's hard. How many great Alabama players in the NFL now? 6?
I mean, it's silly nonsense. There's no way. At the end of the day, the worst team in the NFL still has an entire team of NFL players, and they are all putting out tape for their next job or to keep the job that they currently have with the team they're already on. So players have no motivation to tank at all. Period. They don't do that. Organizations and some. Sometimes, although I don't think this coaches tank. That's just not the case. But I'm with you. I think it's when you're a team like the Chiefs or a team like Aaron Rodgers
it's hard.
And the Packers. So you know how easily you can get it done.
Yeah.
That sometimes you do play like that. And that's his point. Like they want to just play all the way through.
They were great in the first half, abysmal in the second.
Going into the playoffs, they have the Titans and they're at the Bears to finish out the season. So they'll get an opportunity to do that.
The Titans game. We've been saying this for 2 months. The Green Bay Titans game. That's all I want to see. I know Green Bay's going to beat 90% of the league. The Titans are the kind of team that Green Bay struggles with. They're a physical team, point of attack.
It's going to be a great game.
It's good. That's my favorite game of the weekend. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Coming up next, potentially in the history of the NFL, this is potentially the best team ever in league history that won't make the playoffs. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Discovery Plus coming next year. U.S. only. All new streaming service. A lot of your favorite brands like the Food Network also exclusive. originals. Good to have you in. So number one is, there's always a team that every year gets into the playoffs. Sometimes there's more than one, but there's always like one team in one of the conferences, and you don't feel like they're really a playoff team, and you just kind of know they're going to get dogged in the first week. This year, the opposite. There's a team I think feels like a division champ. So in the NFC, we kind of know who's going to make the playoffs. Packers, Saints, Seahawks, I guess Washington, Rams, Bucks. It's between Arizona and Chicago, it feels like to me. Chicago's now playing very well. Arizona, Chicago, they feel the same to me. Inconsistent, but they're good teams. Look in the AFC right now. Either Miami or Baltimore's not going to get in. And nothing against the Dolphins, but if the Baltimore Ravens, who will be favored in their last two games, do not get into the playoffs at 11-5, it is the best team I've ever seen in the league not get into the playoffs. Folks, their losses are to Kansas City, Tennessee in overtime, New England in a downpour when you couldn't see the field, we couldn't see the game late, and Pittsburgh twice. When Pittsburgh was healthier and better. I'm sorry, but this is a really good football team. They hammered a good team in the Colts. They've beaten Cleveland twice. In the next couple of games, they play the Giants and the Bengals. My feeling is, especially with Daniel Jones not 100%, they're going to beat the Giants. This would be an incredible NFL team to not make the playoffs.
Well, they'll likely win both of those games. The Dolphins remaining two are tough. They have the Raiders and the Bills.
Well, they're going to beat the Raiders. The Bills is an interesting story. So Buffalo's not the number one seed. So would they rest a few of their players? Buffalo, not all, but an offensive tackle that's banged up, or a linebacker that's maybe not 100%. I could see Buffalo saying we're going to rest 2 or 3 players for the following week. For most of my life, it feels like my adult life, the NFC has been better than the AFC. The AFC was like Brady, Manning, and some Big Ben. The rest of it was a bunch of nonsense. Man, Miami and Baltimore, one of them not making the playoffs. Those are good teams. Those are really good teams. I will say this. I was watching the Dolphins yesterday, and they really have become, Brian Flores to me, Belichick had all these coaches, and they all took jobs and tried to kind of pull off Belichick, and it didn't work. This is what New England looked like. What you're watching with Miami, this is what the New England Patriots looked like 20 years ago. Is they found this kid named Tom Brady, was not hyper athletic, coachable, accurate, and Belichick was winning ugly. It was defense first. They didn't make mistakes, and they were beating teams even in Super Bowls that had better players. I mean, yesterday, Miami won a game, missing 4 of their top 5 scrimmage yard players. They're now 9-5 in a rebuild in what appears to be the better conference. Duran Smythe at wide receiver was their big target. Savon Ahmed at running back. I mean, these are fine players, but it felt like Flores pulled a Belichick on Belichick. They look like New England 20 years ago. It's just remarkable to watch. They are so New England. They look exactly like them. They're just inserting guys that feel like backups, and they end up making plays. So, Joey and I we were talking about this. So, the college football season, the rankings come out. And Vegas would tell you, based on odds, Bama's the best team in the country, Clemson's second. Now, my feeling is Ohio State deserves to be in their class as the top 3 programs in the country. Clemson doesn't think that, and Bama don't think that. They think it's Bama, Clemson, everybody else. I tend to think it's Bama, Clemson, Ohio State. And then there's about 7 teams, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, maybe in Oregon, LSU every other year. There's a group, and I think Notre Dame, Georgia for sure, Oklahoma for sure, Wisconsin's maybe close, whatever. But you can tell Clemson doesn't think Ohio State is in their class. Because Dabo Swinney comes out, and he knows this is going to go public. He rates Ohio State 11th in his final poll. Now, coaches always go the opposite, right? Coaches are always like, oh, he's the best team I've ever seen. What's up? Dabo's saying, bring it. We don't think you're in our class. And by the way, it's interesting. I do think if I'm Clemson, I worry a little that they're looking ahead to Alabama. But remember, Trevor Lawrence lost some Elite 11 camp MVP award to Justin Fields a year ago, and they battled last year. And so Trevor Lawrence has been watching Justin Fields for years. They've been battling on camps and everything. So this is not lost on him. But I find it remarkable that Dabo Swinney just pokes Ohio State in the ribs. And I think the ACC and the SEC coaches are upset. And this is not Ohio State's fault, but that Big Ten teams didn't have to go through all that ACC and SEC teams went through, which is we got to play all these games. Now, I'm not blaming Ohio State. Ohio State wanted to play week 1. But that is remarkable. Dabo has no concern whatsoever poking Ohio State in the ribs. And I find it interesting. I want to see if the line moves at all. But the line's over a touchdown. So, Ohio State is favored generally by 10 to 15 to 20 per game in the Big Ten. They're now at more than a touchdown underdog to a team that they have a revenge edge on. A team they know their personnel. Remember, last year Ohio State, I think they're wrong, but they believed they were better than Clemson and outplayed Clemson. You think that would affect the line a little? And Dabo's just tweak. That's remarkable to me.
Well, we all just watched the performance that Ohio State put up against Northwestern.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe college football is Clemson, Alabama, and then Ohio State's just in the second group, which is maybe Bama, Clemson, own Galaxy. And then there's 5 other teams that they're in kind of the class, and that would be Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oklahoma, kind of Georgia. We all kind of know who they are.
A&M.
They got to do it for a couple more years.
I think for this year.
For this year.
Yeah.
But maybe I've falsely given Ohio State a little more love than they deserve, and that Bama and Clemson don't think.
Maybe not. Maybe we're all overreacting to that game.
Maybe we're overreacting to Ohio State's Big Ten dominance. Last year we were told it was the best Big Ten team ever, it was the best Ohio State team ever, and they lost. It wasn't the best Clemson team ever. We were never told that. I don't know. Dabo knew this was going to come out.
I love it because it's not going to change my life who wins. I'm just going to enjoy watching the game.
Isn't that great?
But if Ohio State does win,
Dabo's going to look.
Ooh. That's what you do. You put it out there, so you got to take it. You got to take your medicine. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to roll them.
Watching everybody's arguing about all these college football teams and who should be fourth. I really don't have a super strong opinion. I think Notre Dame's resume is better than Texas A&M in terms of quality wins. They did beat the Clemson team with a backup quarterback. I've never bought into this. Hey, Cincinnati, I don't buy lower conferences. I don't buy it. I've seen it too many times. So to me, it's Texas A&M, which doesn't have a lot of quality wins, got thumped by Alabama, but they haven't lost in a long time. Or it's Notre Dame, who one of the things I like about Notre Dame, and I'll always defend them, they don't duck anybody. Out of conference, they're like, give us USC, give us Stanford. Will be partly in a conference, but Notre Dame's history is, unlike a lot of SEC schools, we'll travel anywhere, we don't duck anybody. Notre Dame's willing to play anybody at any time. They've always been willing to do that. Georgia, they're like, all right, we'll go to Georgia, they play us. And even though they lost close 4 times, the willingness to get on the phone, it's amazing how many of these tough-talking college coaches will not leave their region. It is remarkable. All right, hour 3 is coming up, The Herd. Thanks for listening to The Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio. FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Discovery Plus coming next year, streaming service. Exclusive originals plus favorite brands like HGTV, Discovery Channel, and the Food Network. Discovery Plus coming in 2021. Mark Schlereth, Fox Sports analyst, did the Saturday night Bills-Broncos game, which it's not an upset. I thought the outcome was the single most surprising non-upset of the year. The dismantling of the Broncos and Vic Fangio, who's got a great reputation as a defensive coordinator. Schlereth now joins us live. Listen, Denver. I mean, I don't know. I just sat there and I thought to myself, so they come off the Pittsburgh win. They're a young team, and I thought, oh god, this is the letdown. They're going to come right back down to earth. 8 minutes in, I'm like, this is a mismatch. I mean, you're there. Your thoughts on Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean, 48-19 doesn't do justice to what Buffalo did to the Denver Broncos. It was an absolute shellacking. And listen, there are really good, solid football team up and down. They've got a young superstar quarterback that is just, I mean, he's a nightmare to deal with. He's 6'5", he's 240 pounds, he can run around. I mean, he's got unbelievable athleticism, great arm talent. But I think the thing is he's been developed properly. And, it's really interesting talking to Brian Dable, talking to Josh Allen. You talk about, hey, man, he came in with a certain skill set. We didn't come in and say, hey, this is the offense that you're running. We said, what can you do? Let's build an offense around you, and let's evolve that offense over a couple of years. Remember, his rookie year, he completed 52% of his passes. Then his second year, it was 58% of his passes. And then this year, it's 68% of his passes. And they are interesting. When I went to study them, Colin, I'm thinking Buffalo, it's cold. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be physical, a lot of quarterback design runs. I mean, they are a spread offense, empty it out, get 5 eligibles out, and let Josh Allen pick you apart. That's what they are on offense, and they're an exceptional football team. They really are.
So, we were talking to start the hour. We said there's been 5 big upsets this year. Rams losing to the Jets, probably number 1. But the Jags beat the Colts. Raiders beat Kansas City. Bengals crushed the Titans. Giants with Colt McCoy went to Seattle and beat them. Upsets happen. So out of that upset by the Jets, now you've got a dilemma. You're not going to get Trevor Lawrence. Now it's Justin Fields, who I don't think maybe is in the same class. We'll find out. The draft, you never know quite what you're getting. If from the outside looking in, what do you do if you're the Jets? Do you say to yourself, let's just have people bid on this pick and just get a zillion picks, build a fortress, give Darnold 1 more year, we're still not paying him anything, or do you reboot again with Justin Fields? I mean, what would you do tomorrow?
Well, I think one of the things, I think I would try to trade it away and build picks, build your roster. You need a better roster, top to bottom. That's one of the things you need. And as I said with Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, he's going to get an opportunity to be a head coach, obviously. The bottom line is go in and have somebody develop a quarterback. I think one of the things that goes, and it probably goes without saying, but it probably doesn't get enough attention, is show me a team that understands the development of football players. I'll show you a team that can overcome a lack of talent or overcome some inadequacies or some inconsistencies early as they build that thing, right? It's about developing the players. The draft is only part of it. And whether it's Lawrence or whether it's Fields, those guys are going to have to be developed as well. And, that's the interesting thing, talking and doing that Buffalo game. I'm talking to Drew Lock, and he said, hey, listen, when I was at Missouri, we had 7-man protections. Like, I never learned anything about protection. I didn't know anything about protection. I'm not kidding you. He just said, we just had 7-man protection all the time, and then we ran 2 guys deep and, back out of the backfield. And said, hey, throw it to one of those guys. So I never had to learn any of that stuff. So there's this learning curve and a development aspect that goes into it. Like, I just look at this and say, hey, man, there are no sure things. The draft, to me, is still a 50-50 crapshoot. So if you can get great players, build your franchise like you talked about earlier, trade it away, maybe get a real legit player like a known commodity, I think I would go that direction.
So, I was saying earlier today, if you look, I made my prediction June 12th on Brady's numbers, and I said it's going to look like a lot like Matt Ryan. And then we went and looked at his numbers today, and I'm within 8% of pretty much anything. He's going to have a lot more touchdown passes. His TD ratio to interception ratio, I predicted 2-1. It's 3-1. So he's better there. He's got better weapons. You watch him. They fall into a big hole against Atlanta. They come back today. What are the Bucs and Brady to you, and what are they not, Mark Schlereth?
Well, I think they're very talented. There's no question about that. I think they lack consistency and they lack continuity between coaching and between playing. And what I mean by that is, Bruce Arians has always been one of those guys that wanted to go touchdown to check down. I think Brady's been built the opposite way. Let's go check down to touchdown. And I think there's a philosophical approach that just hasn't meshed very well over the course of the season. And, we keep waiting for them to kind of grow together and kind of all become one. And we haven't seen that development. And it was really interesting talking to Brady about this, Colin, he said in New England, when we had new guys and new players, it's cold. We're out there on the practice field. We get those receivers together and we just start working. When the defense was doing their period, we'd be working. He goes, early in the season, we couldn't do that because it's so hot and humid in Tampa. Like, everybody's just drinking water that, like, you can't get that extra work in Tampa. So it's taken, I think, longer for them to kind of discover what they are, what they want to be than they had anticipated. They knew it was going to take, 8 weeks or 9 weeks, but I think they're still dabbling in what they are here going into week 16.
So it's interesting. Seattle's a team. They started the year, and Pro Football Focus had their offensive line as third worst and their defensive line worst. They have solved a lot of their defensive stuff with Carlos Dunlap, always been a good player, kind of buried in Cincinnati, and Jamal Adams. So they get to the quarterback now, and that's also held their secondary. But then I watched their offense this weekend against Washington. Now, is that just Washington's better than we think? I mean, what do you make of Seattle today? The last month, their offense has kind of struggled with everybody. What do you make of it?
Well, I think one, they have to run the ball. I know we get the let Russ cook stuff, and I've always been let Russ simmer. Just give him some help. Russ will hold the ball longer than most quarterbacks will, right? So he is trying to let things develop because they're the best schoolyard team in football. Now, Washington is probably not getting the credit they deserve. Think about their defensive line. Sweat was a first-round pick. Obviously Young, first-round pick. Payne, first-round pick. Allen, first-round pick. They are loaded on their defensive line. It's as good as there is in this league. So they're going to dominate the line of scrimmage quite often. So I think you have to understand kind of what they are and who they are in that regard. I really believe that Seattle will operate better down the stretch. I know Pete Carroll wants to run it. I know he wants to control the tempo and the clock, and I know he wants to be physical in the running game. They've had injuries to all their backs. There's been a rotation there at times. So, I just believe that they're going to get back to kind of their playoff form by being a little bit more balanced than they have been down the stretch. And I think that's probably their biggest issue.
All right. So it's the holidays. What's your next game? What's your next big assignment?
I have got on Saturday on NFL Network, I am in Detroit for Tampa, Detroit.
Okay, so you got Tommy Brady again. All right. So,
yes.
All right, so get us some more information on that. For the record, I was saying earlier today, if the Ravens win their next two, and I think they will, they may not make the playoffs. They may be 11-5 and not make the playoffs. And I said to Joy, that could be the best team I've ever seen not make the playoffs. It's just weird. We added playoff teams this year, and I see a team that's not going to get in. Go back to your career. Just tell me a little bit about the Ravens. They feel like, if I said to you today, one of these teams is not going to make the playoffs, Mark, the Dolphins or the Ravens, okay, right this morning, one of them is not going to get in. To you, which one feels more like a playoff team, Baltimore or Miami?
Baltimore. Like, everybody in the NFL collectively is on penitent knee, just praying that the Baltimore Ravens don't get in because they're a nightmare to deal with, right? I mean, they are this heavy spread, split the field in half, get an extra offensive lineman, an extra blocker, maybe a tight end, whatever the case may be, on the front side, and they will get you in a 6-on-1 type of or 6-on-4 type of thing, 5-on-3 type of thing, and they just get blocking numbers on you with Lamar's ability to run, and then when you get one-on-ones and you get a ton of one-on-one coverage-wise with this football team, Lamar will pick you apart down the sideline one-on-one. I'm sorry, he is a very accurate thrower when he gets those seams, when he gets those outside releases, or when he gets those shallow crosses with his tight end. He's great. It's the layered stuff against zone that sometimes he struggles a little bit with, but I'm telling you what, they're a team that nobody wants to play. And then Wink Martindale on the other side, their defense coordinator, he's never seen a zero blitz he doesn't like, unless, of course, it's at the very end of a Jets game, and Greg Williams calls it. So, I mean, he's going to bring pressure. They are so, like, I think they're really constructed well to to complement one another, both on the offensive side and the defensive side, the way that John Harbaugh has built this team.
Yeah, especially if you had to play Baltimore, like after a big playoff game, because you can't duplicate their offense in practice. That's another problem. Is
Right.
you could play a Tennessee that plays totally different than Baltimore, and I think just there are certain teams that aren't great, but they're really good and difficult to prepare for. And I think the Ravens classifies that. Mark Schlereth, great seeing you. Happy holidays to you and your fam.
Likewise, thanks, Colin.
You bet. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
While we were just discussing that Seahawks game, they held off a late rally by Washington to escape with a 20-15 victory.
Weird game.
Very weird game.
Dominate
Well,
early, and then they're just.
kind of felt like it was going to be close.
I just watched. I watched the first hour of that, and I thought I'm on the wrong side of this thing. Then I didn't watch it as closely, and I turned back, and I'm like, we got a little ball game here.
Well, the win clinches the playoff spot for the Seahawks in their 9th in 11 seasons under Pete Carroll. And with the Rams lost to the Jets, Seattle jumped into first in the NFC West and can clinch the division with a win over LA this week.
That is a. You want to know the line on that? So it's interesting. So the Rams played their worst game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
It means you're going to have a little bounce back.
Seattle won, but didn't play particularly great, so Seattle is favored over the Rams. Uncle Colin's on a heater.
What's the line?
The line is Seattle -2 or Rams +2. So the Rams are going to play so well against Seattle, and Seattle is winning games, but their offense is sputtering. I think the Rams should be favored. That's my favorite bet of the week. Rams and points. Again, there's nobody in the stands in Seattle.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about it. It's just a game.
Well, the Seahawks did have 181 total rushing yards. It's the second most in a game this season and the most allowed by Washington this season. After the Rams, they play the 49ers. And the NFC East is also very interesting now because Washington is 6-8. The Cowboys are 5-9 with that win. Giants 5-9, and the Eagles 4-9-1.
No, I just can't take it. I can't take this division. I still think the Giants are the best team. They just lost their quarterback.
Well, the Washington plays the Panthers, and then they're at the Eagles. I don't know what to make of this division either, but I feel, I mean, there's so many different things that can happen now. There's so many different scenarios for who will get the win in this division. I feel like it's most valuable for the Giants or for Washington if Daniel Jones is healthy. But I guess you could argue it's a good momentum builder for Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys as well. But we'll find out in the next 2 weeks who's going to win that division. So the Bears kept their playoff hopes alive with a 33-27 win over the Vikings. Mitchell Trubisky had a good game with 202 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception.
He's been well.
Running back David Montgomery was the offensive star, season high 146 yards and 2 scores, and the loss from Minnesota dropped them to 6-8, so they're now 2 games back from the 7th seed in the NFC. If you look at the NFC playoff picture, it's very interesting. So we showed this a little bit earlier. If the Bears get in, what do you do with Mitchell Trubisky?
Well, he wins a lot, but I think a lot of it's fool's gold.
Yeah, me too. But if they get into the playoffs, what do you do?
So Dave Wannstedt has been saying this for years. Trubisky has limitations. But what he's good at is, he's got a little Jalen Hurts. He can run, he's athletic. Just play into his strengths and win ugly. And, it's funny, they tried to make him something else. So he got to the playoffs. It's like, okay, we're going to try to make him something else. He's not. And we're going to bring in Nick Foles. No, he's more consistent than Nick Foles. So in the end, I think, I say this about Lamar Jackson, just lean into what Lamar Jackson is. With Trubisky, just lean into the fact that he's a better athlete than a thrower, and the NFL has a history. If you've got a good defense, you can win 8-9 games a year doing that.
I never understand why coaches don't lean into what their stars do when they have them. Now, listen, I'm not necessarily calling Mitchell Trubisky a star, but he is your quarterback.
And
so
he does
why
have
wouldn't you build around what would make him successful? I mean, we're talking about, obviously, I think Tua is more talented than Trubisky.
Yes,
but we're talking about how the Dolphins are constructed, how they're winning, and why they look so much like New England. And Trent Dilfer said this earlier. Build a structure so that your worst players can play their best. Then your best players are going to play that much better. Like, put together a system that works for the players that you have. I think sometimes coaches get stuck into this little box. They're like, no, this is my system. This is what we're going to do. And it's like, okay, this is a square peg into a round hole. It's not going to
The Bears should win the opposite way the Chiefs do. It should never be pretty, but it's a frustrating ball control. David Montgomery, Mitch Trubisky, a lot of running, good defense. Try to, again, be detailed. There's a way to win like that. I don't think there's a way to win Super Bowls like that, but there is a way in this league historically. Jalen Hurts and Trubisky, to me, are very similar comps. Is that, you can win that way. You just have to build around them and give them the pieces so you can run a little more run-heavy offense.
Finally, I thought this was a nice story over the weekend. Tiger Woods and his son Charlie took part in the PNC Championship this weekend. Duo finished 7th in the annual family event, and Tiger was enjoying every second he had on the course with his son. He said it was incredibly special for us to have the opportunity to spend the quality time we had. It's memories we'll have for our entire lives. I'm just proud. Charlie was out there looking just like his dad.
Good putter.
It was really sweet. They shot a 62 in both rounds. That's my favorite part.
He's got a nice swing.
He looks exactly like Tiger. Finished 5 strokes behind the winners, Justin Thomas and his father Mike. But just a fun little story from this weekend. In the
I love that.
PNC Championship. Yeah,
red shirt.
I mean, he's got his fist pumped down and everything. It was good. Look, I mean, it's really uncanny sometimes when you see people with their parents, like how I act so much like my mom, and I swear I don't, but like everyone's like, you have the exact same manner.
My sister always goes, "You even walk like Dad." And I'm like, "How did Dad walk?" She goes, "Like you." I'm like, "I can't be behind either of you." I'm like, "That's Dad walking." Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Every NFL game wrapped up succinctly in 3 words. Our 3-word NFL game. On Monday.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
1 scoop a day, mdrivestart.com. 1 scoop, chocolate mousse, smoothie, afternoon or morning. I take it in the morning. I don't really take it. I enjoy it. Taking it's like medicine. mdrivestart.com. All right, it's the 3-word game. I believe you can succinctly wrap up, when forced, every NFL game in 3 words. Here we go.
Bills and Broncos.
AFC East champs. First time since 95. They're a Hail Mary away from being 8-0 in their last 8 games. And their last division title came before the young man you're watching now, Josh Allen, was even born.
Panthers and Packers.
Packed it in. So Green Bay scores on their opening 3 possessions and then played awful football for the next hour and a half. Aaron Rodgers, visibly frustrated, had a season-low 143 passing yards.
Seahawks and Washington.
Boom is back. Legion of Boom. Seahawks held the last 4 opponents to 17 points or fewer. The defense had 4 sacks and a couple of turnovers against Washington and Dwayne Haskins. A newly acquired Carlos Dunlap, 4.5 sacks in 6 games. And since week 9, you can't run on them. The #1 rush defense in the NFL in the second half of the season.
Jaguars and Ravens.
Yeah, long-term win for the Jaguars, who lost, but they now have the #1 pick in the draft, and a Southern football star would be perfect for a Southern NFL team. Trevor Lawrence, sometimes a loss, and this was an ugly one, is a win.
Lions and Titans.
The man, Ryan Tannehill, 5 total touchdowns, 3 through the air, 2 on the ground. 4th game for Tennessee this year, with 40-plus points. Not the Chiefs, not the Bills. That's the most in the entire NFL. He has had a really nice 1.5-year stretch since he was given the starting job in Tennessee.
Bears and Vikings.
Not dead yet. 3 straight games for the Bears offense, over 30. 7 scoring drives by Mitch Trubisky, and right now Arizona in the 7th and final seed. Bears 7-7 in the hunt. Matt Nagy coaching perhaps for his job. Trubisky playing for his job, and it's the offense, not the defense, leading them.
Patriots and Dolphins.
Patriots beat Patriots. The Dolphins defense, 20 straight games with a takeaway. That leads the NFL. awful. Players appear less crucial than the system right now. They jump out to leads. They had a touchdown taken away because of a discrepancy on the sideline football review. But they were clearly the better team the entire day.
49ers at Cowboys.
Worst draft pick. All right, Cowboys now have the 9th pick in the draft. So they're probably, there's a pass rusher and there's a linebacker at Penn State. And a pass rusher at Miami. At least they don't have the pressure of having to worry about the best couple quarterbacks.
Texans at Colts.
Better organization won. Colts last 3 games. No giveaways, 7 takeaways. Phillip Rivers, once again a passer rating over 100. Why? Because unlike the Texans, they actually draft well and have a really good offensive line to assist their running backs who they've drafted well and their quarterbacks who they've acquired well.
Buccaneers at Falcons.
This felt familiar. Yeah, the last time Brady came back from 17 down, it was against Atlanta in the Super Bowl. And of course, the Falcons' second loss this year went leading by 17 points at halftime.
Jets at Rams.
A legitimate shocker. Jets are the first winless team ever to beat a 9-plus win team on the road in NFL history. I mean, Jets are last in points, yards, passing, point differential, and they beat the Rams. Rams going to be really good this week. Guarantee it.
Eagles at Cardinals.
Wentz era over? 400 total yards? First time an Eagle quarterback had 3 touchdown passes, 3+ in a game, 2 receivers, all of them. Listen, he moves. Carson, according to a story, I read it on Twitter, Carson Wentz wants out if he's not the starter, which I get. You're paying me $150 million, I'm your guy. So somebody will jump on Wentz. Somebody will. Talked to a personnel guy this weekend. He said somebody will jump on Wentz. He's too talented. And he was almost an MVP a year and a half ago.
Chiefs at Saints.
Why so close? Chiefs had the ball for 41 minutes. Saints 18. Drew Brees struggled. Saints couldn't run. They were 1 for 11 on 3rd down. This game shouldn't have been close. Oh. Everybody keeps telling me Kansas City's going to be okay, and I guess if they're healthy, they will be, but I don't know. These 6 straight wins by 6 points or less, that's never been done in the NFL. The Chiefs are just winning too close.
Browns at Giants.
Baker feeling dangerous. Listen, they're playing well. He's averaging 325 yards passing. Over the last 3 games. Now, they do have the highest graded offensive line. That helps. And their running game is great. They remind me a little bit, I've been telling Goulet this, they remind me a little bit of the Cowboys' Dak first year. Best O-line, great running game, good quarterback, but I don't feel there's a special arm or special athletic ability. But they protect him. He plays mostly with leads. Don't think they're a Super Bowl team, but, they can pile up the wins. They feel very much like Dak and the Cowboys first year. Very good team. I do think there's a ceiling. But Baker now, spreading the ball around, a little bit of a point guard. This was a really nice, I thought that was a really good throw. So good for Baker. So I'm not doing a blazing 5 this week.
Just sprinkle picks.
But I was 4-1 this week, 3rd straight winning week. So what I'm going to do is on my Twitter, I'm going to give out a couple of picks. I'm going to give you one right now. Rams +2 over Seattle. So I'm going to give you that one right now. That's one of my blazing 5 picks. Rams +2 over Seattle. Rams got beat by the Jets. They're going to have their best week of practice all season. And Seattle's winning and playing ugly. Discovery Plus, a new streaming service,